성공을 향해 가는 채널.
And so for me, it was hatred of my current existence. I hated being an entrepreneur. I hated being a wannabe. I hated being one of those people who like talked about all the things they were going to do and didn't do anything.
That person that goes, I love when I hear these aphorisms and things, and maybe it goes on the whiteboard that's on the front of my fridge for a couple of months. How does that person get from mental masturbation around it to action? That this impacts my life in a tangible way that actually makes a difference to me. Any of the things that we go through today.
All right. Two things. One is knowing the input-output equation. The second is knowing what your fuel is going to be. So if you can't define the inputs and outputs that are going to get you what you want, then there's no way to start, right? Because you don't know what you're supposed to do. So you have to define it down to like the most basic first actions. It's like, if I want to start creating content, then it means I have to post something. If it means I have to start doing I always think in terms of business. You have to define what the input is that's going to get you the output you want. Now, once you know what that input output is, the next one is, why aren't you doing it, right? And so I think a lot of people are looking for something that is very hard to find. And then they attribute their lack of success or lack of action because they don't have passion or motivation, right? And I was the same way. And so the short story around this was that I watched all the TED Talks in college. Like that was like what I was like, I'm not watching YouTube, I'm watching TED Talks. And I was like, and then I realized, and then I heard the term mental masturbation, and I was like, oh, that's definitely what I'm doing. I was like, my life hasn't changed at all. And then I got my job, so out of college, and I would read all the self-help books. I read like every night. That's all I did. I just read all these self-help books, and I found one of them that said, there are people who are wantrepreneurs and entrepreneurs. And I remember hearing that word wantrepreneur, and I was like, it made me feel sad. But what if they're right? I am a wantrepreneur. I'm not an entrepreneur. I want to be one, and I'm not. And from that point, it took me 6 months to quit my job to actually decide to do the entrepreneurial thing. I think in the early days, people are looking for the big carrot. They want the big vision. They want the big passion, but they don't have it. But I'll give you the first rule of entrepreneurship that I've learned, which is use what you have. And a lot more people have pain. A lot more people have anger. A lot more people have shame. And if you can use that as your gas in the beginning, you'll eventually get to a point where you can get out of that loop and then find something that you are really passionate about. And so for me, it was hatred of my current existence. I hated being an entrepreneur. I hated being a wannabe. I hated being one of those people who like talked about all the things they were going to do and didn't do anything. And this is the Tony Robbins quote, but it's just when the pain of staying the same is greater than the pain of change. And I think pain moves people far, far more effectively than pleasure does. Like the easy way to prove it is like point a gun at someone's head and you have absolute compliance and they will do what they need to do, right? Automatically, just like that. Like death is the great motivator and the gun just reminds you. And so I think that if you can create the figurative gun to your head of the pain that you're experiencing, and then I'm a big fan of future casting out negative scenarios. So people talk about like positive visualization. I prefer negative visualization, which is, what if I keep doing what I'm currently doing for the next 10 years? What will my life look like then? That usually takes my current pain and then just magnifies it. And then that allows me to get my action threshold high enough that it goes over the edge so that I can take that first move. And so if you know what the inputs outputs are of what you need to do, the guy who has the little quote on his wall, and you figure out whatever fuel you've got, not the one you wish you had, but the one you've got, and you use that to do the first input, you've crossed the line.
나는 성공할 수 있다. 나는 부자가 되어 행복하게 살 것이다. 그렇게 쓰고 행동하지 않으면 아무것도 이룰 수 없죠. 원하는 것을 얻기 위해 도전하세요. 그 작은 시작이 성공의 출발점이 될 겁니다.